Hello respected viewers, I am George from Ireland, and behind me you can see the house where James Joyce lived in Zurich for a while. I'm on Universitätsstraße in Zurich, beside the Haldenbach tram stop. I can't actually remember the number of this house behind me. So there's a plaque there above the window. Joyce lived here from January to October 1918, and he's working on Ulysses at the time. So James Joyce is one of the most famous Irish prosers of all time, though he published some poems as well, poems a penny each, and chamber music about the birth of his child. Anyway, so Joyce was born in Dublin in 1882. His father was from Fermoy, County Cork. I'm not sure where his mother was from. She was a Murray anyway. So he was brought up as a Catholic. They were Catholic through and through, his family. But he had Anglo-Norman ancestors many centuries before Joyce, would originally been Joyeux. And he wrote in English. I'm not sure he ever learnt Irish, actually. He's one of the most Anglophone places in Ireland. Also Rathgar in Dublin, which is well south of the Liffey, was a very bourgeois area. Later in the 20th century, there was that, I forgot the comedian's name, who was had all these quips about, thank God we are living in Rathgar, where even those who can't afford one have a car. Jimmy O'D, I think that was it. Because he was born in 1899, so he would have been a child when Joyce left Dublin. Anyway, I don't want to retell the whole of James Joyce's life. I've told quite a lot of it in other videos. So he's the eldest of a dozen children, 10 of whom survived. And his next brother down was called Stanislaus, same as James Joyce's father, another Stanislaus. So James Joyce, he was really, well, his father's pride and joy, the firstborn. He got to go to Clongowes, the best school in Ireland by many accounts. Didn't stay there for very long. But anyway, the family, they started upper middle class, but they were soon falling into straitened circumstances and struggling to maintain a middle class status. His father being manager of a distillery, I think it was, or was it a brewery, things like that, in the Home Rule Party, an admirer of Gladstone, and had various political contacts who helped him out, who gave him sinecures. But anyway, Joyce's mother, she was extraordinarily religious, and there's a bit of a rift in the family over whether Parnell was a good person or not. I mean, maybe Mrs. Joyce was against him partly because he was a Protestant and couldn't be properly Irish or couldn't be entirely trusted, and that would probably explain his adultery, whereas James Joyce's father was less sectarian. It doesn't matter that Parnell's Church of Ireland, he's an ardent home ruler, and that's what we really need. Anyway, so Joyce, he went to UCD, University College Dublin, and he graduated there with the first at the age of 20, and he tried to be a little reviewer in London. And he went abroad. It was actually in Zurich first of all. This is the first place he worked. He had tried his hand in Paris at studying medicine, didn't work out. So then to actually work for Berlitz, he came here. He was here very briefly in about 1904, and then he moved to Trieste and he worked there to the beginning of the First World War, eventually interned during the First World War as British, because the whole of Ireland were part of the UK at the time. Then he was set free, allowed to come here and live out the war. So he was curious about political ideas. He'd attended a few socialist meetings. I'm not sure if he identified as a socialist. Of course, he was here at the same time as Lenin, and Lenin's house was not a mile away from here at the time. And now, who else was here? Was it Carl Gustav Jung? I know he's certainly Swiss. I have a feeling Freud spent some time here. I'm not so sure about that. I know he's Viennese. Einstein was definitely here at that time, although Einstein most of his time in Switzerland was in Bern, actually, where his flat's still preserved. So there are already like 400,000 people in Zurich now. So what would it have been during the First World War? Like 100,000? They almost inevitably passed each other on the street. Certain cafes that he used to love to attend, the Odeon Cinema. He tried to launch the first cinema in Ireland. That business venture didn't get off the ground. But obviously we've got plenty of cinemas in Ireland now. So after his mother died, I'm not sure he ever returned to Ireland. So after the First World War, he moved to Paris with Nora Barnacle, his girlfriend, their 2 children. They finally got married in the 1930s. They tied the knot in Kensington registry office. So they lived in Notting Hill in London, which he loathed. Kensington, not Notting Hill. And I can't remember what it was called, Kensington Grove or something, but he called it Kensington Grave. He was hounded by the press. He was very famous by that stage. Not telling much of his literary oeuvre, but that's probably enough. Anyway, so he's in Paris, living there in the Second World War, and being from Southern Ireland. He was left unmolested. We were a neutral country at the time. But he came here for an operation on a duodenal ulcer, but that gang awry and he died as a result. So his wife and I think his daughter and son were here at the time. His daughter, Lucia, if I got that right, she wanted to be a dancer. She was afflicted by mental ill health. She'd had, well, more than a dalliance with Samuel Beckett, but Beckett wouldn't commit to her, wouldn't want to marry her, and said she was a bit of a nymphomaniac. As far as I know, she never became pregnant. Didn't want him to use prophylactic or anything like that. But this is when they're living in Paris, because Samuel Beckett, another renowned Irish writer who was absolutely fluent in French and actually wrote some of his work in French, a modernist like Joyce, so he would like to sit at the feet of the great man, and so having a torrid relationship with the great man's daughter was helping that endeavour. Well, there's a James Joyce pub around here, which has got the interior of a famous Irish pub from Dublin, which was transplanted here in the 1980s when the Dublin one was about to be levelled. Was it the original Juries? I think so. But one thing is, he didn't go to pubs very much, and he didn't drink beer. He loathed it. He would only ever drink white wine, not red. Anyway, that's just a little bit about his sojourn in Zurich. Toodaloo.